After the dinner party ended, everyone retired to their rooms. The kids were already asleep by now, overstimulated and exhausted from the day's events. With everyone else resting, I was all alone. My newfound ability to take naps helped for such occasions, but it looked like I wouldn't have to rely on that. There was a knock on the door. A maid stood on the other side and bowed. "My apologies for interrupting you late at night. Our leader has invited you to visit her, Sir Rimuru. Would you happen to be available?" I had been silently approached by Luminus's personal maid and overcomer. She seemed like quite an elegant talent, unlike the ones who populated our research lab. I had thought Luminus was going to snub us today, but it looked like she wanted to see me after all. There was no need to turn her down, so I roused Shion and Diablo and we followed the maid down the hall.
Luminus greeted me in her ornate chamber. "Good to see you again, Rimuru. I admire the restraint you show, not bringing that evil dragon along."
She was talking about Veldora, right? I couldn't blame her given what he had done, but it still seemed kind of mean. But that was none of my business. Out loud, I answered her. "Yeah, good to see you too. And he's a troublemaker, you know? If I brought him to something like this, it'd be more of a headache for me than anyone."
Luminus laughed. "Hee. You know him well then."
It was a short exchange, but I felt a real connection to Luminus now. Veldora was helping me in unexpected ways. Waiting for us in that ornate chamber were 3 people, Luminus included. Gunther, her elderly butler, was stationed to her left, and Louis, the man serving as emperor, was standing to her right. With the passing of her stand-in Roy, this meant all the surviving members of Luminus's 3 servants were on hand. I wasn't sure why Hinata was missing though, so I asked, "But you didn't call for Hinata?" Gunther replied, "No. She may have advanced from enlightened to saint, but she's still a former human being. Whether she no longer requires sleep or not, she has still not shed her human habit." Louis added, "I did reach out to her, but she told me some nonsense about sleep deprivation being bad for her skin. It was indeed past midnight, so they didn't force Hinata up." That made sense to me, but then Luminus gave me a light smile.
Luminus explained. "It's odd though, her body's structure has transformed to something closer to a spiritual life form, so skin deterioration should be the least of her worries. But it's true. Hinata actually does require sleep. Even as a saint, her body's still as it was during her human years. It will take many more years for it to undergo the full evolution. A lot of people have the wrong idea about this, but there's nothing superhuman about Hinata at the moment."
She had a little laugh at this. Unlike monsters, humans cannot undergo sudden, explosive physical transformations. That means Hinata still retains some of her human characteristics, which, if looked at from a certain angle, could be seen as a weakness. This was something I subconsciously suspected, but it just showed how ridiculous monster transformations could be. I, of course, did not require sleep, and neither did Diablo. Shion did more or less, but 3 hours per session was enough, and she could stay continually active for 7 days or more without rest. Benimaru and Soe were apparently the same way, which showed just how well monsters adapted to their environments. But regardless, if Hinata wasn't here, it wasn't my job as Luminus's invitee to care. I brought out the souvenir. "Right, well, here's a souvenir for you. It's a collaboration between Shuna and Mr. Yoshida, an apple brandy pound cake." I thought Hinata would complain about serving this while she was absent. But late-night snacks are a beauty no-no, I'm sure. She liked this kind of thing, but if she didn't know about it, she wouldn't have to agonize over taking a slice or not. It's an act of kindness, really.
Luminus sounded genuinely pleased. "What a feat! How thoughtful of you."
Luminus was certainly complimentary. I must thank Shuna for letting me have this. My 2 self-styled secretaries would never demonstrate that kind of good sense. Diablo was always extremely considerate of me, but that didn't apply to anyone else. They both have a screw loose, really. But anyway, I got to the point. "So what did you want to see me for?"
Luminus answered casually. "Yes. Well, I wasn't entirely sure whether to inform you, but I've decided I should. It seems that Granville is up to his tricks again. I am very much looking forward to our concert in 3 days, and I don't want anything to get in the way of it. So I thought I would ask for your assistance."
A rather casual way, I thought, to give some unpleasant news. I wanted to tell her that it was no topic to discuss over cake. Shion was nodding at this, but I don't think she understood the portent of it. Diablo, meanwhile, looked like he couldn't care less. If an enemy came along, he'd eliminate it. Those were his thoughts, no doubt. But this was a pain to me. I was on foreign soil, not my own country. I could summon the demons as well as the forces so I deployed across the land, but I didn't want to go overboard. Besides, if it was that serious, one question seemed obvious. I asked, if it's that big of a deal, shouldn't you really be telling Hinata? Yeah, this kind of thing was right up her alley. She was far more qualified to patrol this nation than visitors like us. But Luminus shook her head.
Luminus refused to be underestimated. Do not underrate us, please. No matter what kind of rabble attacks us, Lubelius's defenses are ironclad. We've thoroughly enhanced our defensive measures to prepare for that evil dragon after all, but we are not flawless. There is a possibility they may sneak in undetected through some previously unknown opening.
The way she was talking, no invading army could manage to shake her steadfast confidence. I mean, if they were planning for war against Veldora, your typical army of 10,000 was no sweat. But that wasn't Luminus's concern. The phrase clicked for me. Some previously unknown opening? Ah, right, Granville Rozzo headed the 7 days clergy? Louis chimed in. Exactly. Given his secret maneuvering around Lubelius across many years, I am positive he has at least 1 or 2 hidden routes he can take advantage of. Humans are gifted at sneaky tricks like that. Gunther's voice tightened with anger. And as irksome as the thought is, he once fought against Lady Luminus as the hero of light. With that experience, he could conceal himself entirely, and we'd have no idea he was there. That did sound dangerous. Kind of an inside job, then. Nobody would know the terrain better, certainly, and there was no doubting his strength. They say he's more powerful than the late Demon Lord Clayman, so you didn't want to let your guard down here, or so I thought.
Diablo suddenly spoke up, sounding as brash as always. Ridiculous. I wish you wouldn't disturb Sir Rimuru with such trifling matters.
And here I thought he'd been behaving rather well. Now the bomb was going off. I really wish he'd learn when to keep his mouth shut. Luis and Gunther looked put off for a moment, but Luminus's smile kept them in line.
Luminus smiled at Diablo. Hee. Well, Noir, I see Rimuru's certainly tamed you, hasn't he? Even seeing it in person, I can hardly believe it.
I wasn't sure why Luminus was smiling in a situation like this, but it kept things from getting awkward.
Diablo protested at once. I wish you wouldn't call me that. I have a wonderful name granted to me by Sir Rimuru.
I cut him off. Enough, Diablo. I'm on friendly terms with Luminus, and I'd like to keep it that way. I gave him a warning that hopefully worked as an apology.
Diablo bowed his head. My pardons.
Refraining from addressing her any further, Diablo heeded my request and quieted down. He even bowed his head a little to Luminus and her servants, and while I'm sure he had no remorse whatsoever, I was willing to accept that. Luminus, after all, was asking a favor of her guests, so I didn't want to aggravate matters.
Luminus resumed. No, I'd say Diablo there is correct. Perhaps it is wrong of us to make this request at all, but there is a good reason why I decided to share this with you.
Very considerate of her, calling Diablo by name, even if it was a nickname. She chose not to sweat the details and quietly began explaining why she'd summoned us here.
Luminus said, as I mentioned when I discussed how Hinata still needs sleep, humans cannot quickly adapt their bodies after an evolution. It is something they must settle into through many years.
An enlightened figure, one qualified enough to be a demon lord, can evolve into a saint, equivalent to an awakened demon lord. However, given the time it takes for this evolution to finish, you could say that a newborn saint is not that much of a threat. They may have swells of energy flowing within them, but if they don't know how to wrangle them, it's pointless. Hinata could control her energies down to pretty exacting rates, but that was dependent on her own personal skills. It didn't come as naturally to her as breathing, so the resulting burden had a physical and mental effect upon her. But why would Luminus bring this up while she wasn't there? Actually, maybe it's the opposite. She waited for her to be absent before she brought it up. And if human beings took a while to evolve, then...
Luminus brought the point back to Granville. Now, going back to Granville for a moment, he is not currently a saint. He is someone who has hatched out of a hero's egg, if you will. Grown and flown away from the nest. Not even I can guess how powerful he has become.
So he's a true hero then? Of course, this world had many types of hero. Some self-styled, others true heroes in training as recognized by the world itself. Some were even real enough to do things like seal Veldora away for years. Just as seed demon lords could portray themselves as the real thing, those bearing hero eggs could be recognized as fully heroic, and the difference in strength was roughly proportionate between the two. Heroes and demon lords really were united by fate that way. And in Granville's case, we were safe in assuming he had the strength of an awakened demon lord. I asked the question Luminus had been guiding me toward. You think he's stronger than Hinata, maybe?
Luminus answered carefully. When I first heard Gren was killed by the likes of Nicholas, I doubted my own ears. A disintegration spell is among the most powerful magics of all, but Gren wasn't enough of a fool to leave himself completely exposed to it. But back to your question.
Luminus looked me straight in the eyes. So this is why she didn't invite Hinata.
Luminus said, yes, you're right. I had hoped to tame that man for myself. Having fought him once, I know for a fact he's stronger than the demon lords of old.
She sounded completely confident, surprising not just me but her servants Louis and Gunther. They were both silent now, perhaps not realizing how misinformed their judgment of him was. Louis murmured, indeed, we never directly fought Gren, so... Gunther followed, but you would rate him that highly?
Luminus said, I would. I gave Gren free rein because I wanted to keep him in my personal sandbox. We both shared common goals, so I forged an agreement with him because I thought it would be fun. As head of the 7 Days clergy, he was granted all kinds of political power. In a way, I kept him as my personal ace in the hole.
That ace wound up betraying her before she could play it, going over to the other side and wrapping his hands around her neck. It was an error in judgment, I suppose, but I felt like I was a part of the cause, a little bit. Not that I was to blame, but I said, well, Maribel's dead now, after all. The cherished child of the Rozzo family. If the notoriously careful Granville was on the move now, that had to be his motivation.
Luminus reflected on that. Ah, yes, the child I caught sight of at your festival. I wasn't aware at the time, but she was quite a foe, wasn't she? If Granville treated her with so much respect, she might have been the key to all his ambitions.
Maribel was a handful. If she stayed away from the spotlight, letting her conspiracies naturally play out, we'd have a maelstrom of evil to deal with. The enemy in front of you is never as potentially lethal as the one seething from far away. Still, though, I asked, so what does Granville want? He can't be taking action at this point out of some twisted desire to avenge Maribel.
Luminus almost answered. That is probably... no, never mind.
She stopped herself from saying something. She shut her eyes for a few seconds deep in thought before quietly continuing.
Luminus said, even long ago, his one hope was to spread peace across the world. He fought against countless slavering monsters and vicious magic beasts, defeating them in his quest to protect the human regions of the world. I fought that stubborn old man many times, until he understood that I wanted to live alongside humankind instead of eradicate them. Once we forged an agreement with each other, that was when peace finally spread across the West. Legions banded together to form small nations which prospered and grew into larger ones over time. And it was Gren himself who appealed to them behind the scenes to create the Council of the West.
Hearing the story like this, Granville, or the hero Gren, really did seem like a legendary figure. He was now part of the shady 5 Elders, but it was still all in the name of protecting humankind. No matter the motivations behind it, if you looked at the results he put up, Granville basically gave the human race 1,000 years of peace, didn't he?
Luminus continued. The ancient elves who rule over Thalion have no territorial interests. We and Lubelius serve as a shield against the tyranny of Earthquake Dagril and the Storm Dragon Veldora. The demons to the north keep attempting to intervene from their ice-shrouded world, but it's more for entertainment than anything. If Guy were serious about it, he would have brought the world to its knees long ago, after all. That just leaves humankind's other great outpost on this planet, and Granville has worked alongside the dwarves to combat it and hired merchants to prod its innards. He's been doing all this by himself for ages.
Put it that way, and Granville really seemed amazing. No, now's not the time to commiserate with him. I pressed Luminus again. All right, so if he's done all those noble things, what does he want?
Luminus teased out only part of the answer. Hehe, don't hurry me now. I'd like to say that Gren has no reason to confront me, but I can think of one thing. I can think of it, but I have no intention of telling you.
Oh, I figured as much given that pause earlier.
Luminus shifted the subject, but I did receive some concerning news about his motives. Do you know Yuuki Kagarazaka?
I answered, sure. You said he gave off bad vibes or something, didn't you? He's the mastermind who incited Pharmus to fight and set claimant against me.
Luminus replied. Oh, you picked up on that. That saves me some time then, but you should know that Yuuki has contacts with Gren. There is some kind of business going on between them, and it seems they forged a pact of their own.
Yuuki again. I'm really getting sick of him playing around with us. Without Raphael, I'm sure he would have easily pulled the wool over my eyes. If we kept letting him run around free, I'm sure we'd be constantly encountering the same problems. Maybe it's about time to settle matters, I asked. So Yuki's motivations are lurking around behind Granville's moves?
Luminus confirmed it. That they are, and I think one of his targets is all of you.
I see. And with me outside of Tempest, now was the best time to attack?
Shion spoke up out of nowhere. Interesting. So that child Yuuki wants this Gren character to fight against Sir Rimuru?
I gave her a surprised look. Knowing her, I assumed she was spacing out on the conversation by now, but she actually had a full grasp of it.
Diablo answered with absolute confidence. Perhaps they think they enjoy an edge now that a few of us have left the country, but they had best think again. We have not one but two members of the Big Four guarding you. No scheme of theirs could possibly cause any harm.
Diablo, meanwhile, was the same as always. I really wish he wouldn't bring up the Big Four right now. It's so embarrassing.
Luminus gave the practical warning one more time. Well, remain on your guard. Once 3 days pass, it will be none of your business anyway. As I said at first, all I care about is enjoying a nice concert.
Luminus never wavered. She called Gren a threat, but to her the entertainment came first. And as we concluded this private midnight talk, I began thinking I could learn from the way she compartmentalized things. So was Granville really going to do something? And was Yuuki going to take advantage? With those worries in mind, I greeted the second day of our stay in Lubelius. Today we'd be bringing in and setting up all our equipment in the concert hall. We were guided to a grand cathedral, one of the nation's main buildings. It was large enough to hold crowds of parishioners while also serving as a defensive post for the road that lay beyond. I had nothing in particular to do. Best to let the professionals handle their own instruments. Instead, as I planned, I'd be taking the kids out for some on-site social studies instruction. Of course, after listening to Luminus, I exercised the cards I had in hand. First, I called for Venom, who answered directly to Diablo and ordered him to go on security duty. I'm sure this sudden invitation confused him. I started to tell Diablo, I want you to watch over Baton and the rest as they prepare.
Diablo interrupted smoothly. Sir Rimuru, one moment, if you please. I thought we may run into some trouble here, so I made some arrangements overnight. The orchestra will be safe.
Great. Diablo must have foreseen and addressed anything that make him leave my side. This is exactly why he assembled so many troops, I'm sure, so I didn't mind that at all. But apparently he told Venom to come here in 10 minutes or less. Venom actually did it, which was funny enough. But if that's the kind of order Diablo gave without a second thought, he really was heartless. Which he was, of course. He's a demon. I marveled at his talents all the time, but at that moment I couldn't imagine how hard it was to work under him. So the next thing I knew, Venom already had 100 demons helping the orchestra. These were all above A in rank, and I couldn't imagine any security issues from Luminus's side either. The band was nothing if not very well guarded. Thus, guided by Hinata, the children and I observed the goings-on around Lubelius. My personal take? It's the exact opposite of Tempest, but not always in a bad way. Here, you were guaranteed a happy society at the expense of personal freedom. There was no competition, really. You just followed your assigned instructions to carry out your work, and then you did it a million more times. Alice whispered, sounds kinda boring. Kenya nodded. Yeah, I mean, people our age are working and stuff. Is there no school or anything? The other children didn't comment, looking confused at the unfamiliar landscape.
Hinata answered. No, there's no school here. It's a nation managed from the top down, with everyone living peacefully as equals under the name of our god.
Hinata sounded proud of it, but did she really think it was right? She and her forces got to enjoy a luxurious life, but didn't she feel bad about having a monopoly on that? Of course, it didn't feel right to tell some hapless commoner about what they were missing out on, but...
Hinata continued. After all, some things you just can't have, no matter how hard you try. You can't yearn for something if you don't even know it exists in the first place.
Kenya took that in, then said, I guess not, but Kenya was no fool either. He understood what I was getting at.
Hinata went on. In this managed society, the population enjoys high levels of happiness across the board. That's all the more reason why we need to go through the Western Holy Church to build relations with other countries.
Yeah, I'll bet. You couldn't expose this oblivious populace to stimuli from other nations without warning, Alice said. Makes them sound kinda sheltered. Another child answered, but if they're happy, I don't think it's really our place to comment. Kenya thought it through aloud. Yeah, happiness doesn't come from material possessions after all. If it's emotional happiness you're after, then a society like this works. Not that I could ever stomach it. Now that I knew better, I'd always be pursuing more abundance as my mission. Way back in the past, when I spent my afternoons playing tag with my school friends, maybe I could have accepted something like this. Everyone has their own idea of what happiness is, after all. It's not the sort of idea that you could point at someone and say they're wrong about it. You had to think for yourself and act accordingly. That's the best way, I figured. It was food for thought, but... Chloe quietly spoke my own thoughts out loud. But none of these people can survive on their own, right? They can't keep this up unless they've got someone protecting them. Never underestimate a child's knack for observation. Hinata blinked a little at this. I guess she must have picked up on that as well. Just how warped this society really was. If everyone was oblivious, they'd be unable to do anything without someone managing them. Having no freedom meant that someone else had life or death power over you. It wasn't much different from being livestock.
Hinata admitted softly. Yes, and that's why we're working to avoid that.
Chloe accepted that, then offered her own answer. Well, okay. But I think it'd be better if this was a group effort, Miss Hinata. That way, everyone could pitch in instead of you having to do everything. That was one ideal, yes. But someone always had to suffer eventually because it never really worked out that way. We're all born with different levels of talent, and everyone produces work at their own pace. Words like equal sound nice, but there's always going to be a cruel, unequal reality attached. Ideals and reality, a contradiction that could never be fully buried. Prop something up here, and something else has to sag over there. There's no correct answer. You just have to keep rushing down the path you believe in, and that's what makes life interesting. I think today gave the kids a lot to ponder. It also reminded me that material possessions aren't enough to make you happy. I knew that, but I just couldn't stop. That was the conclusion I made, but I still didn't think today was a waste for me. My approach was, in a way, just one of many correct answers. The diversity I enjoyed was the very potential that drove people's lives, I thought. But I wanted to reconsider my life one more time carefully. No need to decide what's correct or not. I was stabbed in my previous life, and then I got reborn as a slime. Nobody could tell you what's coming next for me, and if that's how it was, I'd be missing out if I didn't enjoy the present. That's what today made me think. And even now, the gears of fate were turning.
In El Dorado, Leon reacted to Arlos's report with disbelief. Jaune has disappeared?
Arlos answered, yes. It is hard to believe, but I detected a massive amount of magic force, and then the demons sleeping there seemed to vanish.
Leon could only say, unfathomable.
Leon thought he misheard Arlos's report at first. In Leon's domain was an area shared with the demon realms, the spiritual world that demons call home. It was a land covered in thick miasma and magicules, one where a demon with untold powers could occasionally manifest itself. Your typical demon, bereft of a physical body, could be handled by Leon's Night Corps, even if they were an archdemon. However, they had discovered an older demon in this land, one that's such an absolute threat that not even Leon could ignore it. This was Jaune, the original Yellow. She had yet to obtain a physical body, which limited where she had access to. However, her presence was still enough to keep Leon from moving an inch from where he stood. Anyone else would have been helpless against the carnage she wrought. Claude, the Black Knight, explained the danger. She's an insane demon, the sort who'd throw nuclear-level magic spells around for fun. She would be impossible to live alongside, and she has no interest in negotiating. Without your backup, Sir Leon, she would even threaten my life. And now you say she's gone? Arlos confirmed it. Yes, Claude. I couldn't believe it myself, so I went to see. And the region that normally overlaps with the demon realm has been dimensionally repaired. I can only assume that someone has blocked the gates of hell. Claude muttered. Impossible. Claude, the Black Knight, widely considered the strongest fighter in all of El Dorado, was snapping at Arlos, the Silver Knight, and his comrade in arms. Everyone who lived here, not just Leon, was tormented by the demons. If Jaune, the original source of all their woes, had disappeared, it was such good news that nobody would dare believe it. In fact, the missing gates of hell seemed to portend even more ominous events for the future. The gates were a kind of door that overlapped between the physical and spiritual worlds. Its presence allowed bodiless demons to appear and interact with normal space for a limited time. Many knights had been deployed to close this door, but the demons stopped them. Ever since Leon built his nation here, there had been continual skirmishes on regular occasions. What made this so difficult for the knights was that spiritual life forms could resurrect themselves as long as you didn't kill them at the root. Even worse, a demon just killing some time could easily cause massive damage to Leon's forces. To Leon, who ruled over an otherwise bountiful realm. Only the demons kept him up at night. If he truly wanted to, perhaps he could sweep them all up by himself. But one false move, and it could lead to Jaune awakening. And even then, Leon could probably beat her, although it'd require the fight of both of their respective lives. That's why he had avoided that so far. Leon kept circling the same question. What could have happened? Jaune is she isn't like Missouri and Rain the way Guy describes them. She simply doesn't listen to reason. After carefully weighing his interests, Leon decided to maintain the status quo, even if it meant taking some losses. And now, out of nowhere, that threat was gone. He and all his forces agreed about one thing. No way had it just happened to turn out like this. Now more news was reaching Leon's nervous ears. An Azure Knight reported, "My lord, there are currently 5 children being kept under wraps in Tempest. We've confirmed our intelligence with their former academy in Anglecia, and we're almost done assessing it. It would appear the Demon Lord Rimuru is forging a secret pact to sell the children to the Demon Lord Luminus."
Leon reacted sharply. What?
The knight continued. Lubelius and Tempest have signed a peace treaty. Both demon lords are on good terms with each other. Our guess is that Rimuru has deceived Yuuki Kagarazaka and is using the magicule-rich children for his own business dealings. They had just received a magic call from a member of the Azure Knights currently investigating Tempest. The news gave Leon pause. The Rimuru he met at the Walpurgis meeting didn't strike him as the sort to pull a move like that.
Leon gave the order. Have them observe this agent of ours closely. He may have a good contact, or he may be under someone's control. Wilf.
One advisor asked. You don't think? Another completed the thought. The Demon Lord Rimuru, perhaps?
Leon rejected that. No, I just don't see any reason why Rimuru would get rid of the children. Whiny face.
An advisor asked, so why then?
Leon answered, someone's trying to make us fight, someone who stands to profit from it. There's a chance the Demon Lord Luminus is being dragged into this as well. For all we know, Luminus may be behind it all.
The advisors recoiled. One of them whispered, "What in?" Leon thought for a moment, gauging the situation in the Western nations, figuring out who'd be the prime suspect. The conclusion was as obvious as it was unnerving.
Leon said the name aloud. The Cerberus Society?
Only that shady pack of merchants knew Leon was collecting otherworlder children. Well, not just them. The people he tapped for their knowledge of summoning spells knew too. Leon's suspicion turned darker. In his mind, the thought formed, perhaps the Rozzos have discovered our summoning program? Yes, maybe those merchants joined forces with them in a real, palpable way. If he started to doubt them, there'd be no end to it for his troubled mind. Besides, that report was suspicious on its face. Leon wouldn't have any motive to take action over just 5 children. Or so he thought. Normally, demon lords avoided interfering with one another as much as they could. Butting into a conflict between demon lords that he had no personal stake in would be the height of folly. It could give him 2 enemies where there used to be none. It was best to ignore these events. Luminus might be scheming at something, but it'd all be pointed at Rimuru, not Leon. There was, by Leon's reasoning, no point in making a move. This time, however, he could feel his judgment wavering. Perhaps detecting this, Leon's advisors began debating the matter. One advisor said, "I see, so there are people out there trying to take advantage of Sir Leon?" Another asked, "Should we quash them?"
Leon stopped them. No, Cerberus has major clout in the Eastern Empire. It'd be unwise to make enemies of them without any evidence. They're no doubt fanning the flames here, but the Rozzo family might not be so faithful themselves. And besides that,
He was taking the situation coolly, providing suitable instructions for his forces. But there was still a pang of anxiety in Leon's mind. That name, Scoey Colber. Could that be? No. There was no reason to make a move. In fact, any moves would mean falling for the bait. Leon understood that, but he still had trouble resisting the impulse. If Jaune was alive and well somewhere, he couldn't do something ill-advised that could affect the very land he stood on. The scales in his mind remained stationary, pointing out the correct choice. And yet, a strange thought pressed at Leon. "I just feel like I have to act right now." He had fallen silent, his advisors looking up at him. One knight pledged, "My lord, we are all your faithful knights. We will gladly follow any orders you give us." Another followed with the same devotion. "Yes, no matter how selfish you may be, we will never chide you for it. Grant us your orders, and I promise we will make them come true."
Leon looked at them and murmured, "You?"
Arlos, Claude, and all the other knights were unquestionably loyal to him.
Leon weighed the impossible coincidence. Either Jaune's disappearance is an extraordinary stroke of luck, or...
Leon closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was a fearless smile on his lips.
Leon made his decision. "I accept your loyalty. I must go myself. Guard this land in my stead."
The knights answered as one. "Yes, sir." Here, in the golden land of El Dorado, great forces were now in motion. Leon Cromwell, the Platinum Saber, was about to reach for his sword and end his long silence.
Route confirmed. The next episode and full playlist are ready.
Then don't stop here. Keep watching in story order and subscribe before the next part drops.